This is WCM's Park Update, a weekly show covering the outdoor hospitality industry, hosted by Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. During each episode, you'll hear from special guests and campground experts on topics that will help your park flourish. WCM's Park Update is a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine.
Hi, I'm Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground Magazine, and this is another edition of WCM's Park Update. My co-host, Mike Gast, former vice president of communications at KOA, and he's joining us from a shopping trip. So,
Well, yeah. I keep getting stuck out here in. I'm not used to winter driving. Let's blame it on that. I'm creeping around. I'm the old guy on the ice.
And our guests today are from RMS, Adelle Rodriguez and Kaelyn Beckman. I said Kaelyn, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's good. So we got that out of the way. And I guess, what do you guys do at RMS? I guess, Adelle, what's your official title?
Yeah, I guess my official title is director of marketing. And Kaelyn is our marketing manager for the outdoor segment at RMS. And yeah, we make a good team.
Yeah. And we brought you on to talk a little bit about your State of the Industry report. And I know people will probably remember because we wrote a little bit about the generational report that you guys did with Arvik, right? And I know, Adelle, you spoke at the conference about that.
Yeah, I mean, we love OHCE. It's always a good time. And getting to talk with RV Share and go over some of the bits of the report were really great. And one of the things about our report is we realized that while the Arvik report is incredible and it's got so much data, we noticed, actually Kaelyn noticed, that we were missing a little bit of data around the Gen Z and the millennial segments. So we decided to go in and expand on that. And Kaelyn, if you want to tell us kind of a little bit about what our thoughts were around,
Everything. Yeah. So essentially this report is just supplemental to cover those generations that weren't as touched on. So essentially we did this because, with 40%, the large majority of campers being millennials, and with more and more Gen Z campers coming every single year, these are going to be the campers that we want to cater to. So we kind of wanted to come at it from that sense, saying, what do these camp owners need to do to prepare for the future?
Yeah, and we've had there's just a ton of data going around the industry right now. And I know Mike and I have talked about a lot of data. I know we've done stuff on the Dirt Report before at the Camp Spot. I know we did some stuff on RMS last year when you guys did some of the reports that you guys released. And Arvik has their study. I mean, it's just a ton of, I just love reading all the different reports and then seeing what they all tell me. So, and it's amazing how much they'll say the same things often. Yep. So
luckily we find the trends. So we may have different sources, but that's a good thing to show that we're all kind of in the right direction.
So obviously you guys thought you had a gap here that you wanted to fill with the Gen Zs and the millennials. So how do you use that data right off the bat? You obviously were looking for it in the other reports and you didn't see it. So now that you have it, what are you going to do with it?
Well, for us, it's more of, we wanted to make sure that we've got a full view of the market, and Gen Z and millennials, they're legitimately the current and future buyers. So the current and future campers, they're camping a lot now and they're going to camp a lot more coming up. And so we wanted to make sure that we gave that lens to campground owners. So to say, hey, this is why we need to prepare for these people. And these are their preferences, and this is what they're looking for in their camping experience. So no one's caught off guard of, hey, well, there's a disconnect between what people want and what we're providing. So that was the main kind of point of that one.
So what are some things that really stuck out to you about your research, I guess? What are some things that you were kind of surprised to see, or maybe some things that you expected to see, I guess?
I think, well, Kaelyn, you got one.
So essentially the main thing that stuck out to us is that essentially the new generations are already here, and they're not only wanting, but already expecting these higher levels of technology at campgrounds. But something that was interesting was that even though the vast majority, I think it was like 83%, wanted increased technology, even going like all the way from Wi-Fi to AI technology. The other side didn't want any technology, and they saw it as a way to disconnect. But largely, the whole overarching theme was that people wanted technology in the booking process.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
stuck out to me. But Adele, go ahead and add on to that.
Yeah, and I was going to say that
What-
was the big thing, was when it came to the on-site experience, like once they got to the campground, there was some like real mixed reviews on like, well, no, I want to get away. I don't want any Wi-Fi. Like, I want to go sit in nature and be Zen Buddha, versus, no, I want to be able to share everything as it's happening. So there were some generational divides on once you got on site to the campground. But like Kaelyn said, overarching, it was the expectation is they want to book a campground, an RV site or whatever, exactly like how they book a hotel. They want to go to your website, they want to book it online, they want to check in online. That's just the baseline expectation.
So did you see anything with the booking window? Or is this group of people that you were interested in more interested in booking farther out or closer to their stay?
That's a really good thing. Yeah, we for next year.
We're gonna add that to next year. Thank you for helping us. No, but that's actually really important in terms of like that planning. And we did ask a question about different sources that they use to find campgrounds. So whether it's an online search, whether it's word of mouth, and things like that. And that was one of the interesting things we saw in the report that definitely stood out to us.
I thought it was interesting in that section of the report, friends' words of mouth is still huge. So like, even though they have all of this technology and we keep hearing about websites and everything else, they still get a large part of what they values from their friends or what they're hearing.
Yeah, so that's actually something that Adele and I spoke about, is what do these people think of word of mouth? Like, what do they think it is?
What do they think that actually means?
Yes, because whether that be a generational thing or whether that be because of the pandemic, a lot of people think that word of mouth is social media, especially in these generations. Like for me, I'm on the older side of Gen Z, but Adele, you said the same thing. Is like, if we see our friends post something on social media, I would consider that word of mouth.
That's word of mouth.
Yeah.
And so I think that had to do a little bit with how we framed the question. And that also came up last year in the RVIC report, where we framed a question where we said, when we asked like, oh, well, how do you like to book? And it was like online and direct, like face-to-face was one of the questions. And we saw that the younger generations had this like insane spike of like wanting to be face-to-face. And we were like, what? And we did a little bit of research, and Inc. had done some research around the fact that Gen Z and millennials consider text and FaceTime and things like that face-to-face.
Yeah.
So
it
gets a little murky with some of the survey questions, even amongst the generations, and how they perceive the certain answers.
Do you have some customers now of yours that are offering up touchless check-in?
Yeah, we have quite a few customers who use and let me think, I want to say for sure Sunland is doing this. I'll have to think, probably some of the Beyonder campgrounds are doing this, where they have mobile check-in. So they're using the customer portal that's built into RMS, where you can modify, almost like a hotel, where you can modify like, oh, I'm going to change it, and all through a particular web-based portal. And so once you arrive, you can check in there. And based on how it's set up by the actual campground owner, it can say, great, this is how you get to your spot, or go to the front desk so they can show you. But checking in is something that a lot of them do mobilely now, which is great.
What about like when Kaelyn, you mentioned the technology, they want to disconnect. Does that mean their cell phones? So like I've heard people say like they want to disconnect, but cell phones are just like almost like a body part now. So I don't know if they are thinking cell phones too or not.
Yeah, so we actually had at the end of our survey, we had a free response section. And when some people meant cut off from the world, it's no cell phones, no internet, no anything. And again, there was a pretty small group of people who wanted to do that, but they were still there. So yeah, it ranges in what people want. And yeah, some people just wanted to be completely off the grid.
Yeah, which was interesting. It was a much smaller percentage. I would say
A lot
maybe
smaller.
like a 10% of like the
Or less.
overarching people. But yeah, I think that that's also another really great thing that we might want to dig into further is like, well, okay, when we say technology, what do you think technology means? Like,
Mhm.
because for us, we're thinking, okay, great, technology means, the technology that the campgrounds are using to operate, not so much the technology that the consumer is using while they're like on site and things like that. So again, kind of that differentiation in terms of how we ask those questions.
Right. And something that we were digging into as well is this a revenue opportunity for campground owners? And just because essentially campers wanted the choice of what level of technology they wanted in their camping experience. Yeah. So for example, if they wanted Wi-Fi, that could be an additional revenue opportunity. But just to give campers the choice of how far along that scale they want to go.
I'd be scared of what my email inbox would look like if I had a weekend without technology. So
Exactly.
So you guys were looking at a group of people that probably don't have a long experience with crowding on campgrounds. They may be relatively new to the practice. And did you notice anything in the research where they were a little bit disgruntled with the fact that they were having a hard time finding a campsite?
So we might have seen some of that in the free response. What was really interesting, what I thought was really interesting, and I fall into this bracket of 40% of the respondents have camped some growing up and are just now getting back into it as an adult.
Mhm.
That was the large majority of people. Then there was some people who were like, I've been doing this for years. I live on the road. Those are much smaller percentages, but a large grouping of them were people who, I'm just now getting back into it I was doing it as a kid, and now this is like a form of nostalgia and I'm getting back into it. I don't think we saw maybe like one or two kind of issues in the free responses of like, yeah, it's been really hard to find a campground. But again, that's something we should add in the future. I know personally, like if you want to do anything at a national park, like you got to do that stuff
You gotta
like
book ahead of time.
way ahead of time. And so, yeah, there definitely is some frustration with, if you want a specific destination or a specific experience, that the demand has gone up so
Mhm.
much, and it's not something that people expected.
Yeah, and in our
As a big
research, I think it was about 16% of our respondents said that they were just camping for the first time within the past 3 years since the pandemic. So these people, wouldn't know the difference. But we did see a bit of that, those issues there in the free response. Yeah.
I wonder, I know in the report you mentioned that 35% of them are tent camping. And so I wonder, I know we've seen a large number of younger generations, especially doing dispersed camping. So maybe, those younger generations just aren't having the campsite issues too, because they're doing tent camping, they're doing more dispersed camping, they're willing to try out some of these other things that versus maybe like the older millennials with their families aren't doing as much of. So
Yeah. And did we break it up by generation in terms of the type of camping that they liked?
Yeah. So generally glamping was the most was the most popular at 36%. Tent camping was at 35%, but millennials preferred tent camping and Gen Z preferred glamping.
Yeah. I know tent camping is really huge. It's kind of interesting. I think there's more we can do on that front, on the WCM front too, on writing about tent camping. I tent camp, so I don't have an RV. I'd love to get an RV. An RV for me is glamping. So
Yeah.
It is. Yeah,
so,
like I've only ever tent camped. I've actually, and this is blasphemy, I've never done RVing yet, but we're actually going to be taking like a team trip to go like stay at one of our clients' RV parks soon, just to get like the full on experience.
yeah.
But yeah, I grew up tent camping, so to me, I'm like, oh yeah, that's camping, is tent camping. Everything else.
It's actually interesting that you said RVing is you consider glamping, because the way that we structured it out in our research was tent camping, glamping, and RV. So it's interesting if people consider, glamping and RV camping similar.
Yeah.
I think in general in the industry, RVing isn't considered glamping.
Yeah.
But I guess, when you're talking about like an elevated experience, when you're going from tent camping to RVing, for me, that's an elevated experience for me. But I mean, I think glamping's a little bit more than that. But
It's more of the,
Yeah.
all-inclusive type of
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
How
But
about how about their propensity to rent from the outdoorsies of the world?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that we did not cover that one. I know that in the RVIC report, we did talk about kind of RV share and things like that, and how the younger generations were much more likely and much more, on board with, hey, let's rent this RV. Let's see how it happens. Like, maybe we don't want to invest in one yet, but we want to test it out. So it's interesting to see a much higher growth rate in those kind of rentals and wanting that experience on the younger generation side.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we know just from like RV share and outdoorsy, they're having record years, and it just they continue to see more traffic. And I know from the RVIC study, I think it was, I'm trying to look it up, but there's a pretty large number of people that are considering RV rentals and want to do that more. So, but we have to take a small break to recognize our sponsor, and we'll be back in a few seconds. So. WCM's Park Update is being brought to you by Woodall's Campground Magazine. For over 5 decades, Woodall's Campground Magazine has aimed to provide park owners and operators with the relevant industry news they need to run their businesses more efficiently. As times have changed, so has Woodall's Campground Magazine. Besides just its print publication, which is distributed to more than 14,000 industry professionals every month, the magazine also reaches readers through its various social media platforms, including Facebook at Woodall CM, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Woodall's Campground Magazine also offers a daily e-blast which highlights the top news from the industry. The best part, everything we do is advertiser supported and free to our readers. As the outdoor hospitality industry continues to grow at a rapid pace, it is important to stay up to date on trends and other relevant news. Subscribe to Woodall's Campground Magazine at woodallscm.com. Hi, welcome back to WCM's Park Update, and we are talking with Adelle Rodriguez and Kaelyn Beckman from RMS just about their recent campground report that they released. And we were talking a little bit about the rentals right before the commercial break. And I did find from the generational study that 82% said they would rent peer-to-peer. So that's a pretty high number.
That's high.
I tried renting peer-to-peer a few times. It never really worked out, but I know in my area here in Michigan, there's just a ton. If you go on like RV Share or Outdoorsy, I mean, it's a big money maker for some people. So
They probably looked you up on Facebook and backed away, Ben.
yeah, probably. That's definitely true.
They're like, he's a secret shopper.
Well, they realize that I have like 6 kids I want to take too, and they're like, I don't want my RV to get beat up or something.
Yeah.
but no, and just from, like I said earlier, Outdoorsy and RV Share, they're just doing really well right now.
Yeah.
So it'll be
It was really great being on the panel with the CEO of RV Share. Like, they had some really great insight, and like the data that they pull is always so insightful.
So I guess, what are some other aspects of the study that just kind of jumped out to you that surprised you, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing was, and maybe I knew this already because I'm an elder millennial. The whole concept of the choice is king. The whole concept of people want to choose their experience. It's like, we want everything, but we don't want to use everything. We want to kind of pick and choose. So, and that's kind of a pretty tall order for campgrounds, to be very honest. And so really kind of looking through the data and looking at what was important to people, seeing that having that choice was super important. The main thing I always wanted to reiterate, after all this data comes out at stuff like at times like this, beginning of the new year, everyone's coming out with the reports, is it's a lot for campground owners to digest.
Yeah.
And how do you come up with actionable things to do after you see all this data?
Yeah.
I mean, it can be scary. It can be intimidating. And so the main thing that I always want to come across is any technological upgrade, whether that be, okay, great, now we're going to do online booking, or okay, great, now we've upgraded our website a little bit, or okay, great, we've added, a few more emails to our customer experience journey. Anything you do is going to make a massive improvement. And don't feel like you have to take a big bite out of the entire, marketing and technology world all at once. To me, that's kind of what
Do you think the studies like yours and the groups you're looking at in the future are going to substantially change camping over the next 10 years? They're going to have to evolve?
Right. Yeah, we actually we're looking into how much are these growing? How much are these groups growing? And I think there was an 18% in Gen Z campers just this past year in the most recent data. And that's going to continue growing, obviously, as these people have adult money and are able to, go camping with their friends or their family. And even though millennials are already the vast majority of campers, they grew by 8% just last year. And again, these newer generations are going to continue kind of shifting who's going camping. And again, what's the generation after? Gen Alpha? Those people are going to come in, yeah. And so these more
they're 10 right now.
Advanced, we don't have to worry about them yet. But as these more technologically advanced generations come in, yeah, they're going to have to, these campground owners and campgrounds might have to adjust to fit their needs.
I'm not even going to say might. I'm going to say they're going to have to because, if we think about it, millennials and Gen Zers and now Alpha, we're digital native. Like we grew up with that. There was never a time for, especially Alpha, there was never a time where Google didn't exist, where you couldn't find everything on your phone and do everything from a computer. And so if your campground isn't able to support like basic function, like with a website, with booking online, stuff like that, you're not going to be found and you're not going to be booked at. And that's really where it's going to come to over the next few years.
I think it's kind of interesting with Generation Alpha, though, too. Those 10-year-olds and under have an incredible amount of power in guiding their families where they're going to go, too, because, the parents are going to want to go where the kids want to go. Yep. And if the kids have a bad experience camping or, they've never been camping and they're kind of shy about it, that's definitely going to have an impact. So I think, when you're talking about like a family campground, they definitely have to market to some of those younger generations too. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not a marketer. That's your expertise, I guess.
You're giving us some great ideas for like our next report on.
We'll report back next year.
What's that marketing look like for a campground? How do you reach those kids? I guess how do you make them want to come back, or if they've never been camping, how do you get them to want to go camping? I don't know. So I don't have all the answers. So.
Well, and the growth curve for campgrounds, the construction curve is so long that the campgrounds for alphas are being built today.
Yeah. So, yep, that's very true. Yeah.
And I know that, again, this is not in our report, but something to kind of add to that is, the hot topic has been EVs and electrical charging on like sites, and as states like California make it more important that it's again, all of those things are going to lead into the future of, these, if we think about the generations who are 10 now, who are going to get their first car in 5-6 years, most of them might be EVs at that point. And are you going to be able to support that? So again, there's a lot of things to consider, if we're looking at that 5-10 year future mark versus looking at now. And I would say for the now, the expectations are being able to at least find and book digitally. And then from there, we're a little bit more forgiving.
Yeah, definitely. I thought it was interesting too, because you mentioned like they want choices, and I know a lot of campgrounds have been, they have these amenities, you pay more for amenities at some locations or all-inclusive packages. I found it interesting in your generational report, you mentioned they spend like $50 per person per day or $200 per person for a family of 4. And that's something for campground owners to think about too, I think, is just that they want the choices and they're willing to pay
For it.
extra for things. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that in next time we do this report, if we decide to focus on millennials or even like the younger generations, we are going to start including questions about like, well, what are your cost expectations?
Yeah.
Because I remember when I used to go camping as a kid with my family, it was like, you know, $30 a night or something for a cabin, and we'd bring all our food and it was great. And I don't even know if that's the case anymore. It's, people are willing to spend a lot more money.
Yeah, and something that you talked about at the panel as well is, that not only affects how much campers are spending at the campground, but also the community around it.
Yeah.
And I thought that part specifically was really interesting to me.
There have been some studies that have, maybe it was a generational study too, but there's been some other studies that I've read that show campers supposedly spend an insane amount of money in the community when they come.
Oh, yeah.
I know I do.
Yeah.
So when I go camping, I stay like at the campground, and I'm pretty cheap. So we bring everything, but there's studies that show people will spend hundreds of dollars a day. So
yeah,
right.
when I'm tent camping, we prep a little bit of like the food that we want, but then as soon as we get there, we go to the grocery store, we go to the local store, we buy all the stuff that we want to have, so we don't have to leave the campground, and we can stay in our Zen space, but we're still contributing on our way in and on our way out, in terms of the community.
Yep, they always get me with ice. So
how are you sharing this data now? Anybody can get access to it just off of your site? Is there a way for them to access this?
Yeah, if you go to americas.rmscloud.com and click on our resources section, it's one of the featured things in our resources
the very
section.
first one that you see.
You can just we do require your social security number, your business license, your firstborn. No, you just have to put in your name and email address, and you can download it.
And we'll have a link in the description. There's a link in the description of this video too that people can click on. So and you can fill out the form and get the email. The email comes pretty quick, so that's good.
Yeah. Marketing automation. We gotta love it. But also on that page is a lot of other really cool resources. So we have a first-time camper guide checklist that, like, if you ever want to brand it yourself and email it to people who are maybe first-time campers and don't know what they're doing. As well as we've got a marketing toolkit that has like some email marketing templates that you, regardless if you're using RMS or anyone else, you can use and drag and drop into any platform.
Yeah, and we were talking about that at we did a webinar on our report, and the marketing toolkit actually came up when we were talking about how people want to be contacted. You know, how do these generations want to be contacted? And those touch points, that email automation was one of the main things that people wanted to see. So that's where the marketing toolkit might be helpful. Again, you don't have to be using RMS to download it, but it's in our resources page if you would like to use it.
And I'm a little older. I'm on the older end of the millennial generation. So Kaelyn, you're on the older end of the Generation Z. Well, I'm on the older end of the next one. So
elder millennials.
Yeah, and Mike is above
I'm
me.
just old.
So, yeah. So
we have variety.
When I first got my cell phone, I hated getting text messages, and now I've like started getting like marketing text messages, and those are actually. I think I've gotten used to them. I actually like the marketing text messages. And I know like, parks are doing those too. So
I hate a marketing text message, but if it's about a reservation I've made, I expect a text message about my reservation. Yes. So, you know, things
not wanted, but expected.
So what's the future of this report, I guess? Or is this going to continue to be an annual thing? Are you going to expand on it and make it larger? You know,
Yeah. Every year we do something slightly different. So last year we did a full-fledged just industry report, regardless of generation. This year we wanted to kind of dig in on the particular generations that were coming out. And next year we'll see what happens. I mean, you guys kind of basically help us write the one for next year already. So
next year's is already done.
Okay. But yeah, we'll be doing it every year.
So you're going to put Mike and I's face on the cover.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
Oh, I
full credit.
We bring the star power. So,
Exactly.
Well, it was great chatting with you, Adelle and Kaelyn. And I hope you guys have a great rest of the year. I'm sure I'll see you at conferences, maybe this, if not this spring, next fall.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming on and talking with us about your report. So,
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you guys so
Thank you guys
much.
so much.
all right. Well, everyone, all the viewers, have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to WCM's Park Update, a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine. Join us for a new show each Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn for daily news and updates, and subscribe to our news feed on our website at woodallscm.com. Show hosts are Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. Executive producers Rick Kessler and Alex Burkett. Copyright 2022, G&G Media Group.